Hey guys, it's Goose from the Wise Wealth Discord coming at you live Monday morning. Just gonna give you a little update on what I'm seeing in the market. Pre-market is open now. It looks like we're getting a little bloody. The originally futures were ripping earlier last night because the government shutdown was averted, at least pushed down the road for a little bit for 45 more days. But the 10-year is kind of going crazy with the bond market, and that's never really a good thing for growth. So what I'm seeing right now in the SPY is definitely a downtrend happening. They broke through last week some major points. Um, Probably change this out because as you can see, when it did have the wedge going, once it was broken, it came all the way down, broke through the support, that support. So I'm going to delete some of these just to clean it up a little bit. Do have that ultimate downtrend right there. You could probably start to plot a little bit of a trend right here coiling up, and then the shorter term trend, because this is the 4 hour, something like this. Let me use this actually. So like it could bounce up and start to like coil up this way and create a little bit of like a bull flag from the previous pull that it had going. But it's pretty typical to have like a pullback with how strong we were going. So it's like even though it is starting to get bloody and you start to hear a lot of fear, it's like we're really only down close to like maybe 10% from the top. So I don't know if it's any like cause for concern. Yeah, like 7.7 3/4 from the top of the big old push that we've had from October lows. So I don't think it's really much of a concern. I think a good buy point would be around 415 to 420 for the SPY. So we'll just have to wait and see if it does get that low. Right now we're at 426.26, so we're not very far off if it does continue to keep going. But I would watch these trend lines because if this gets broken, I mean, then you can start to just continue to waterfall. But yeah, like I said, a good buy point for long-term investors, 415, 420. I think that dip would be a pretty good place to be buying. You don't really know what's going to happen. You know, a lot of people are calling for a black swan event because of the type of credit that we're going through, and everybody's ran up on debt, and the Fed's trying to raise unemployment. So I can't predict any of the future, but the Fed keeps preaching, soft landing, this and that. There would be a little bit of pain, not too extraordinary, but then you have the bears screaming for, the Great Depression and all this crap's coming. But just continue to read the charts, continue to have good technical analysis, and see how it plays out. But right now it looks pretty standard. We're going to go to the Qs here. This is Big Tech, it's an ETF. Overall, it broke out. Now it just seems like it's having a pretty good correction, a pretty good pullback. I don't think it's any cause for concern. I think it looks a lot cleaner than the SPY as far as the downtrends happening. So I started entering calls right around here towards the end of September. I was in Discord telling people, seasonalities usually plays a pretty big role in the fourth quarter. Excuse me. The third quarter, with September and stuff to that nature, is usually one of the worst months for stocks. But now that we're rolling into the fourth quarter and it's a pre-election year, it's usually a pretty bullish time of year for the stock market. So we really just have to wait and see if it does end up happening. But these are still my levels that I'm watching. So now that it's at the bottom of the band, that's where I kind of typically want to buy calls. And then it just so happened that it's towards the end of September. So I was looking more at like October 20th, I don't know when some of the expiration dates was, but I know for specifically October 20th, like a few weeks out, I was looking at about 370s. 370s would be right about here. There's a gap to be filled here, right above. So I feel pretty comfortable buying some longer term calls right at the bottom of this with. I just People are screaming for everything to come crashing down, and it really hasn't showed much. Like our unemployment's still pretty low, inflation's still kind of sticking around, so it's like that could lead the Feds to continue to raise. I know that there is quite a bit of bank runs and liquidity issues with banks, but the Fed obviously backstopped that with their new emergency fund that they do for them. So I don't know if as long as the Feds are still printing, I'm sorry, but nothing's gonna magically come crashing down unless something shakes the market. Sorry, I just woke up like 20 minutes ago. Had quite a long weekend. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm like terminally bullish, but this is a good time of year to be buying dips, I think. Right now, as you can see, the Qs are down. Like I said, the 10-year is going up quite a bit, but we have Jerome Powell speaking today, so that'll be big. This is some of the economic data that'll come out. 15 minutes in, we get manufacturing PMI data, ISM PMI. The the darker the folder, the bigger the impact. So like ISM manufacturing would be big, and then Fed Chair Powell speaks. That'll be big. That's at 11. I believe coastal or eastern. It might be eastern. I know it's definitely not the time that I'm in mountain time, but definitely huge thing. Then you have more Fed speakers the rest of the day, so there could be a lot of volatility. We'll just have to see what happens with the bond market. As I was saying though, with the Qs, you have the oversold and you have it bouncing on the bottom end. So that was my confluence to get in calls. That's personally what I'm in right now. This is the 10-year that I was talking about. When these bonds are going up, it's not good for high beta stocks. I mean, it's very rare you'll have the bonds, this green in a day and then everything else would be up. It usually affects tech the most too, like high growth stocks. So this breakout it was pretty big. I think it was the daily is the one that's kind of getting overstretched a little. You can see the RSI is starting to scream a little bit, and it's just kind of obvious. Like when it's that high up, there's usually a little bit of a pullback. So that's another one of my confluences to start entering calls. Is the 10-year has been part of the reason why this correction is happening because of how high bond yields are happening and or going up. And it's like when you see it going this high. Excuse me. You see the RSI going rampant up here. You could typically start to see a pullback on the 10-year. I think a good point would be, 4.3%. Hopefully, if it can come back down and retest that. We'll just have to see. You have the dollar that's continuing to go up as well. So it's like when you have the dollar and the 10-year going up, stocks are going to continue to go down. And that's why you see them both green in pre-market. Now the SPY and the Qs are going red. When yesterday they were up like 3/4%, like a 0.5% in futures because of the government shutdown was averted. But now that yields are going up and the dollar, it's pretty hard to battle against that. So this is going to have to back off today if we want to see stocks go off. We just have to wait and see what Jerome Powell has to say. We don't really know what he's going to say. I can't predict the future with that, but could be pretty big. Bitcoin had a huge push yesterday, so that was kind of odd to see. I think it was because of the whole government shutdown, like the hype for it. But Bitcoin doesn't look bad. There's a bullish flag forming, so it's like if it could break above some of these levels of resistance, it could continue to go up. But it's been on a pretty decent uptrend. It's still like kind of struggling a little bit, but as you can see, it's basing out on the bottom. So we'll see. It's been a long, pretty consolidated area, but this was the point of resistance because this was when it came up, it got denied. It came up, it got denied. And when it made it above, now it looks like, one touch, two touch, three touch. It looks like there's a good support around the 25,000 area. So that's something good for long-term Bitcoin holders. There's still a pretty strong resistance around 34.5, I think. That's where a lot of these touches were in the past. So we'll just have to wait and see. But they've been having a pretty good run so far from the bottom around 25,000. People aren't really letting it go below that. We got Apple, um, kind of the same thing. It's just pulling back. It did break through some of the um, things that we were looking at. And Jimmy and I had a bear flag plotted on the 4 hour. It was a pretty big one, but this right here, there's already a green line right next to it. I might delete that real quick. So you got that flag, you could see the pole and then the big old flag. Once it broke below that, you could see it was a pretty drastic sell off. Bulls started to step in, they're trying to save it a little bit, but it's kind of awkward looking. That's why I haven't really treated it since, the whole rising wedge that broke out of it. It just looks really awkward to me. I don't really know what it's trying to do. And it's like sometimes the best trade is no trade at all. It's hard to find because it's just like how straight up it was. It doesn't seem like there's much of like a support, and then with how big of that push was, I don't know. It's hard to predict with apples. It's just kind of like a lot of thin air down below. I don't really, maybe a support around 155 area. There's a little consolidation, but till then there really wasn't consolidation of much area. There was right here, and that's kind of the levels it's battling with right now. So if it does lose that, then yeah, I guess 155 could be the next stop. Maybe the weekly looks better. I don't know. It just looks, yeah, this looks kind of weird, funky to me. But maybe there's a push up. Who knows? We don't really know what the week's gonna hold. We just like to plot it out and see. Microsoft lost its overall trend, so that's a big one. That's on the weekly time frame. Go a little shorter now. So some of the things I was calling for last week is a possible bounce, to go retest some of these areas and then continue to sell off. Because we don't really know exactly how deep this little correction we're in is going to go, but there's always dip buyers that go in on some of these things, and you start to see plot some of these downtrends that it has going. Something like that, and it's like when it breaks above, that's usually a pretty bullish thing, and there was a pretty convincing green candle right there on the 1 hour, and then the retest. So it's like those are pretty bullish things in my opinion. When you see some of these, Nvidia, same thing. It had its falling channel, broke out above, and it's like now the next point of resistance is about 449, 450, somewhere around there. If it can get back in this channel, this megaphone pattern, that would be pretty bullish, just like AMD was. We'll get to that one. Semiconductors are could potentially do good, but like I said, all these like Magnificent Sevens, these are pretty much high beta stocks, and these are going to struggle if the 10-year, the 2-year are continuing to go up. The bond yields, those are going to, if those continue to rocket, then these aren't going to perform very well. But Meta, I know Jimmy mentioned something about getting at the upper band of a trend line. I don't know if it's this or if it's like a longer term one, but that's just kind of how I have plotted it. Like it's a lot of consolidation. It's very sideways. There's no true trend going on here. So I'm just waiting to see if it is broken, below 276 or if it can get above the 315 area. Maybe hold somewhere above here. 320 would be even more bullish. But it's just kind of hanging out. I don't think there's really much to plot there. It's just kind of sideways. Haven't traded it since I tried to short it, getting denied up here. I got not really smoked. I think I only lost like 10%, but it's just been choppy. It's kind of like Apple. When I don't really see a clear defined like pattern, I try and stay away from it. And Meta and Apple right now are just kind of messy. I don't really know how to play it. Tesla's looking pretty clean. They have this ultimate trend right here. It got a pretty convincing push up from it. They have delivery numbers dropping before market open today. So it looks like they're struggling down 3%. I don't know. Tesla reports fall in third quarter deliveries, misses estimates. Well, that gives us our answer 435,000 vehicles in quarter three. I don't know exactly what they're expecting. 1.8 million vehicles remains unchanged. So yeah, I mean Tesla is just one of those companies where it's like I don't think you necessarily. It's not that you don't want to short them. It's that you want to be buying these dips as a long-term investor. I think Tesla is one of the best companies you can find. There's a chart the other day that I seen, like U.S. Electric car vehicles purchases, and it's like they're not like all the other competitors, Chevy, Ford, Nissan, Rivian, all those other competitors aren't even close to what Tesla's doing. And when you're thinking about the future and clean energy and stuff, and what Elon's got going, Tesla, Amazon, like those type of companies are really heavily invested in innovation in like clean energy and stuff to that nature. So I think that's one of the best companies you could buy on any dip that it gets. So it's like, as you can see, it's down close to 3%. It's got this yellow line right here, 243. If it does get down to this level, about 235, I think those are instant, pretty good dips to buy because one time, two times, three times, four times, five times. So it could come retest it for the sixth time. One thing that does look bearish is that it would be a lower high because it was creating higher highs for a little bit, but now we got like a short-term downtrend happening here. But it's going to continue to coil. We'll just have to wait and see how it does break out. As you can see, it's been a pretty big coil up action. So if it does break, it's going to be in a very massive way, and this would be a good buy point for some bulls if they want to get in. Google, they broke their trend. What didn't look good on their daily is this big denial point because they did go to retest it, and this trend was broken, and now they're getting denied from that point. So it does look definitely slightly bearish on the Google side of things. Just have to see if it does continue to keep going down. Amazon, yeah, the break of the trend. It was going up and consolidating, and now that it's finally broken, maybe there will be a retest, maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to tell. There is a gap above, but it's another one of those things where it's not very clean. It's just kind of sketchy areas, and when it's not like very clean patterns, you don't necessarily want to trade it. It's just kind of up and down. What's up, doggies? Got some dogs in my room. But yeah, I just want to do a short, quick video. I don't really have much else. Netflix is kind of the same thing. It's got like this downtrend pattern going, but if broken above, it could look good. Right now, it looks like it's getting sold off because the 10-year and Tesla numbers and stuff, so tech doesn't look the best. I did want to show you AMD though. The play that I had last week is because I was watching it because it broke down below, kept getting denied, but once it got in here, that's when I started buying calls, and it did shoot up quite a bit, but there's still this resistance here too, up above. So yeah, this whole trend right here, it's like I'm really just waiting for it to break in either direction. And I wasn't really convinced with this bottom break because there wasn't a huge red candle since that. And the calls did pay out pretty well. It was a nice little call out that I had. But now that it's at the top of the trend, we'll just have to wait and see if it does come all the way back down or if the bulls can start accumulating here and break above. But yeah, that's about all I got for you guys. Hopefully this helps a little bit, give you an idea on what levels I'm looking at. As always, I'll be in the Discord, posting the call outs and the breaks and stuff to that nature. Jerome Powell does speak today, so everybody have be